So it's a congenital condition, so it's
Mhm.
inherited. It occurs in 17 to 20% of the population, so it's very common,
Yep.
and yet nobody's heard of it, right?
Mhm.
um, so anyone who has, in my understanding of it and in my experience, anyone who has fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or ME or chronic headaches, asthma, eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, IBS, any inflammatory hives, itchy skin,
Yeah.
any inflammatory condition of any of the systems is caused by mast cell activation syndrome. Hello.
Hey Tina, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm so sorry. Something got lost in translation there. I thought it was going to be 1 o'clock my time, but of course it's 1 o'clock your time, right? Is that
No,
right? No.
no, it's not. It's gone 9 p.m. and I think what the problem is that we're in daylight saving here. So I think the problem is me because
Ah,
I've I'm
don't
skewed up
worry.
all the hours and the time delays and stuff like that.
Don't
It's it's
worry. Don't
It's a
worry.
shit fight at the
Luckily,
best of times, to be honest with you, Tina. Like I'm always messing up something. So anyway, it's a
don't
wonder I
worry.
actually get this podcast on the road, to be honest. I fuck up so many times.
Well, well
Yeah,
done. Well
yeah,
done.
that's right.
Well done indeed.
Uh,
No, I wasn't. It was lucky. I just saw you another email come from you. I thought, oh, what's that? Because he sent me the link already, and it said I'm
yeah,
popping on in 2 minutes. And I thought, oh,
I
oh
thought we changed it. Yeah, I know. It's so
no, not
confusing.
to worry. We're both here. It's
We're here, and that's
fine.
the main thing. That's right.
Yes,
How are
yes,
you
yes.
anyway? How's your day been?
I'm really, really, really well. Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
great.
really well. Yeah, yeah. You look well.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sporting a couple of little things at the moment here, which is like a couple of
Yeah.
little scabs and things like that at the moment. But it's from a cooking accident that happened just a
Oh,
couple of days
what?
ago where I got a splatter of oil. So you can kind of see
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
shoot
yeah, yeah. The
right there.
line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
the
right.
trajectory.
Yeah, I know. So I just missed
Oh
my
my
eye
God.
and sort of like,
Oh.
got a bit of battle scars. So I wish I had a better story about it, but it was just oil
Mm,
splattering up. So anyway, I appreciate
uh,
you coming on and having a chat with
it's
me.
okay. It's a
It's
pleasure.
yeah, well the
It's
pleasure's mine. I'd love to find out a bit more about you. I mean, I've heard obviously Efrat connected us, right?
yes,
So it's she's a
yes,
wonderful person
yes. She's
um
amazing.
and I
Yeah.
listened to your podcast with her and I thought it was
Okay.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love for you, just for the listeners' sake, if they haven't really heard you before
Yeah.
or know of you, it'd
Yeah.
be interesting if you can sort of maybe catch me up on your story because I understand like
Yeah.
you've gone through a whole COVID journey, right? As everyone
Yeah.
has, right? But yours is unique, because well, coming from a perspective of being in the medical industry, I think
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear people's perspective coming through it on that side. Like I can tell you
Yeah.
all of my ideas and how things went when it was getting
Yeah.
rolled out and just all that sort of, fear and everything that started.
Hmm.
But anyway, I'll hand it over to you because I'd love to hear your take on it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm Dr. Tina Pears. It says my maiden name there. Do you want me to change it?
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah,
Is that all right?
you can leave it. Of
Okay.
course.
So I'm Dr. Tina Pearce, and I qualified in 1983, and I have a background in general practice, and then spent 24 years as a consultant in women's health. And then in 2016, I became very interested in a condition called mast cell activation syndrome because my daughter, my youngest daughter, became very ill with it, and we found it very difficult to find anybody who knew anything about it. So we had to sort of navigate it ourselves and find out what we could about it and treat her. And Anyway, so that set me off on the journey of being able to realize what was going on with COVID and long COVID, and then help the vaccine injured, because a
Mm.
lot of it is rooted in mast cell activation syndrome. So, like everybody else, well, like many people, I trusted the system I grew up in, and I was taught various things at medical school, which I accepted as being the sort of the accepted wisdom, and
Yeah.
that I was up to date, etc., and being given up to date, relevant information. Anyway, so along comes COVID, and I was very fortunate. By then I was a menopause specialist and seeing people with mast cell activation syndrome, and working predominantly on my own, which I think was a huge advantage
Mhm.
because I was able to be slightly separate from the mainstream of medical chitter chatter, and policies and diktats that were coming down into the NHS, no doubt. And I also was free from groupthink because, as doctors are, most medical professionals are extremely busy, and you're rushing from one job to another, and you're ticking off your list of to do, and there isn't that much time to sort of really think.
Mm.
And so if you're in a group of people who you respect and enjoy working with and know very well, and they start saying things like, well, we've all got to get vaccinated, and isn't it great that we've got the vaccine, and all of this kind of stuff, it would be very easy to be caught up in that.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky because I was outside of it. So I wasn't caught up in that. And I was thinking, when more critically, maybe, when as a result, so when I heard the government saying various things, I'd be like, oh, that doesn't make sense. And to begin with, your discomfort is very little. It starts. I mean,
Mm.
everyone is anxious because we didn't know anything about this so-called infection that was hitting us, and we didn't know how bad it was. We didn't know which age group it was going to affect. We didn't know how to treat it. We didn't know what impact it was going to have. So obviously everyone was a bit sort of tense. But when they started saying various things about lockdowns and etc., it was like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Really?
Well, in medicine, you quarantine sick people. You don't stop the healthy people from going about their business. You
Sure.
don't stop the students having a student experience at university. You don't stop the services working, and the country would just grind to a halt, and people would lose out economically so much that that would impact on the country and not just the
Mm.
individual. So it was like, that doesn't make sense. And by then we had realized that it was affecting the elderly predominantly, that they were, if they had comorbidities, not just elderly, but elderlies with comorbidities, maybe they didn't do so well. And there was a lot of confusing information coming out of different countries, about about what they were going to do about it, and the fact they were saying there's no treatment. I was like, well, there's always treatment. We always treat infections. There's always something we can do,
Mm.
and so that didn't make sense. Anyway, then what happened next, really, I suppose, then they started talking about the vaccine, and that didn't make sense. And I was like, hang on, we cannot vaccinate our way out of this, because the viral story is that viruses change and mutate constantly. So you would be constantly playing catch up, and you would never win. A vaccine would be obsolete as soon as it was released, because the infection would have changed. So that didn't,
Yeah.
and also prior to that, they've been talking about natural immunity, which made perfect sense. Anyway, and then out came a report from Italy, because, like many people, I was reading as much as I could in the medical journals about it to try and get a handle on it. And anyway, so this pathology report came out of Italy, and they said they'd looked at some post-mortem results of a few people who died, and they said, well, it's very strange. They had hyperinflammation in their lungs. They had bleeding and hemorrhaging. They had also blood clotting, and they had breakdown of membranes.
Mm.
And when I read that, I went, that sounds very familiar. That sounds like the mast cells are misbehaving in these people. And when they said there's hyperinflammation, and I thought, well, that's definitely the mast cells that are responsible for that. So this is the spring of 2020. And I think to myself, I think what's happening is that the people who were really struggling with COVID, which was about 20%, 17 to 20% of the population, most
Mhm.
people, they got it, they got over it, you know, if they got it at all, they were fine. And this small percentage got into real difficulty with it. And then these were the pathology findings. And I thought, well, that's mast cell activation syndrome that's actually killing these people, not the infection. It's their body's response to the infection.
Right.
And the reason that those that list of what they saw sort of rung bells with me is because the mast cells release about 2,000 cytokines into the body, and these chemicals are incredibly potent in very small quantities. And they have different effects on the body. So there's histamine, which could cause the hyperinflammation. There's elastase 2, which causes the membranes to break down. There's heparin, which causes hemorrhaging. And then there are some prothrombotic factors, which can cause bleeding. So I thought, well, these people have died from mast cell activation, not from the infection. So what we need to do is when somebody catches COVID, give them treatment to calm down their mast cells so that it doesn't go into hyperinflammation, etc.
Mm.
So then I was very lucky, in as much that I got a chance to try my theory, because soon I was doing my clinics and patients would come on the Zoom because it was all telemedicine,
Sure.
and they would be in their pajamas and dressing gowns, and they'd be really looking very unwell and coughing and coughing and coughing. And they'd say, "Well, we didn't want to cancel our appointment with you because you're difficult to get an appointment with, so we didn't want to delay things. So I want to talk about my HRT." And I was like, "Hang on a minute, what's happening here? You're not very well." And they say, "Oh, I really feel terrible. All my family, we caught COVID a week ago, 10 days ago, and everyone else has got better, and I'm just getting worse."
Mm.
I said, "Okay," and asked them a few questions, and it would turn out that they had a previous history of undiagnosed, untreated mast cell activation syndrome. From their history, you could tell.
Wow.
So I would say, "Okay, what we're going to do is I want you to take magnesium and selenium, zinc, quercetin, which is a mast cell stabilizer. I want you to take a high dose of vitamin D, high dose of vitamin C, which is a natural antihistamine, and I'd like you to use some antihistamines, which you no doubt have got in your house because everybody has them. But I want you to take not one a day like it says on the box. I want you to take one 4 times a day, and I want you to let me know tomorrow how you are." And the next day, a message would come, or I'd speak to them, or text would come or an email saying, "I'm so much better. I've stopped coughing within 4 hours or eight
Yeah,
hours
wow.
of the antihistamine." Right? So I knew I was onto something here. So I treated about 100 patients with COVID, and none of them needed oxygen. None of them needed to go to hospital, and nobody died.
Right. Is this Tina, is this prior to the vaccine rollout? This is in
Yeah, this is in
the throes
2020,
of
the spring of
2020. Yeah, right.
2020,
Yeah, okay.
the
Got it.
spring of 2020. So,
Can I
so
pause you for a second though? Can you
yeah,
maybe explain to me in a I don't know, layman's terms, like with
hmm,
mast cell, what
yeah,
do you call it? Mast cell activation?
activation. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. Can you explain
MCAS,
that to me? Because I
MCAS.
think
Yeah.
it's the first I've heard of it is through you, through your
Okay.
podcast that
Okay.
I've listened to. So I'm sure there'll be
Hmm.
someone else there thinking like, I don't even know what the hell that is. But if you can
Okay.
explain it to me, that'd be great.
Okay. So it's a congenital condition. So it's
Mhm.
inherited. It occurs in 17 to 20% of the population. So it's very common,
Yep.
and yet nobody's heard of it, right?
Mhm.
So anyone who has, in my understanding of it and in my experience, anyone who has fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or ME or chronic headaches, asthma, eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, IBS, any inflammatory hives, itchy skin,
Yeah.
any inflammatory condition of any of the systems is caused by mast cell activation syndrome.
Right.
So our mast cells are like our first responders, the first responders of our immune system, and they are therefore just inside our body. Okay, so they are lining our sinuses, lining our nasal passages, lining our mouth, lining our cornea. They are lining our gut from top to toe. They are just under the skin. They're lining the lungs. So anywhere where the environment can come into contact with the body,
Mhm.
there are these heavyweight bouncers, like bouncers in a club, and they're
Sure.
just inside the door. And the trouble is that in this condition, people have inherited an immune system that's overreactive. So these mast cells are trying to keep you safe and they overdo it. So instead of letting people into the club who are okay, they just bar so many things. They might bar lots of different foods. They might bar chemicals. If you smell somebody's perfume, they go, you know, a stress. They decide to explode.
Right.
And this ends up causing inflammation in the person because these 2,000 cytokines have far reaching effects. They're
Hmm.
quite difficult to isolate because they're around for a few seconds, some of them, but they have an impact which could last days. So they're hard to sort of say, oh, let's do a blood test and see them all go up because they'll have gone, the body will have sort of cleared them. But the impact of those chemicals and those little messengers can be quite devastating to the patient. So they end up with aches and pains all over, aches in their joints, aches in their muscles if it's fibromyalgia. They could have a chronic headache. They could have hives come up on their body, rashes, itchy skin, eczema suddenly, getting worse, psoriasis. So it expresses itself, it shows itself in lots of different systems. And if somebody has inflammation or in two or more systems, then the chances are that they have got mast cell activation syndrome. And as I say, it's inherited. So they'll have a family history with a mother who has IBS and psoriasis, or a father who's had chronic headaches and gets asthma or something.
Right.
The clues are there. You just have
So,
to
and so what
ask them.
irritates it though, like like if you mention something like IBS, for example, then you can say, well, certain foods obviously
Yeah,
would activate that. But you're saying that it's almost anything can kind of trigger it
yeah,
in a sense,
yeah.
if
So
it's already present in your body. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, so these mast cells are just overreactive. So because the mast cells are lining everything, they also line
Mhm.
your nerves. They surround the nerves.
Right.
And histamine, which they release, is a neurotransmitter. It also is important for our cognitive function. So it has some very important functions,
Hmm.
histamine. And it also helps with our circadian rhythm. But you don't want too much of it, right? And
Sure.
when we produce histamine in our bodies, so you have like an insect bite, what do you see? You see swelling, which is
Mhm.
inflammation. You see redness, okay, and itchy. It's itchy. So these are the effects of histamine. It causes vasodilatation, which causes the redness. It causes inflammation, which causes the swelling, and it makes the area itchy. So histamine has an important role, but you don't want too much of it. And then the body has two enzymes that break down the histamine and need to clear it out. Once it's done its job, it needs to be cleared out. And many of the people who have mast cell activation also have something called histamine intolerance. So it's a bit of a double whammy
Hmm.
because they're not great producers of these enzymes that break down the histamine. So they're making far too much too easily. And then they have this bottleneck and they can't really clear it out effectively or
Right.
fast enough. So then it hangs around in the body and then it causes inflammatory processes to happen in their different, if it's in the gut, it causes IBS. If it's in the lungs, they get sort of tightness in their chest and a bit
Hmm.
asthma-y. I think a lot of the asthma diagnosis is not asthma, actually, it's MCAS,
Right.
an inflammation from MCAS. So, and that's why sometimes with people who say, "Oh, I've got asthma, but the inhalers don't work in me," because they're trying to treat the wrong mechanism. So
Mm.
it's
That's
very,
interesting.
very interesting. It's a very interesting condition, and it's very common. And I suspect that many of your audience now will be going, "Oh my God, I've had that for decades, and nobody's been able to help me with it." And now, she's describing me. She's describing, so they might drink alcohol and go right red in the face and get rosacea. Well,
Mhm.
that's an inflammatory response because alcohol's very high in histamine. So if you're putting histamine in, and your body, that's not good. So high histamine foods are
Wow.
often very healthy for you. So that's avocados and tomatoes and spinach, and tea and coffee, green tea, and chocolate, unfortunately.
Mhm.
These are all very high in histamine. And if you've already got quite a lot of histamine in your body because you're not breaking it down very quickly and your mast cells are releasing it too easily, then it's very easy to eat something like gluten, have a sandwich, and
Yeah,
your level goes even
goes up.
higher, and then you've got more inflammation, you've got diarrhea, or you've got tummy pain, or you're bloated, or you know,
Sure.
you develop a headache in the afternoon. You think, why has that come from?
Hmm.
Because you had a sandwich for lunch.
Right.
Okay, so 80% of the population are fine. They can eat the avocados, which are good for your brain and all the rest of it. And this poor group of people who are trying often to be, they have these symptoms, so they try and be as healthy as they possibly can be. So they often think, right, I'm going to eat avocados and tomatoes and everything freshly prepared, blah, blah, blah. And they just make themselves worse, which is what happened to my daughter.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was so fed up of feeling chronically ill all her life. She decided to go on a sort of health kick, and was blitzing all these superfoods and drinking
Hmm.
this all day, and it just poisoned her. So she became really, really sick.
Wow. Yeah,
Mm,
I think that's why when you hear people go through, for example, like a paleo diet or something which is mostly eliminating a lot of what you just described in terms of
yeah,
um, these histamine enhanced foods, I guess their
yeah,
inflammation goes down. They feel a ton better because they've just eliminated
yeah,
all of the
yeah,
the things
yeah.
that were causing all the problems, right?
Exactly. So a lot of my patients, I encourage them to go on a keto diet because
Yeah.
keto diet's good for you anyway, right? But if you cut out gluten and you cut out all the processed foods and you cut out the sugar, your histamine levels are going to come down. And I
Mm.
have some patients who go on the carnivore diet. They do really well because that's very anti-inflammatory,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
their system settles down within about 3 weeks. And that's really great. The other thing that's helpful is fasting. Intermittent fasting helps these patients. But I mean, if they could do a long fast, obviously with supervision and help, then that can really, really let everything settle down and calm things down for them and resets their immune system. And
Mm.
then there are certain things that trigger these mast cells. And one of the principles of treatment is to get rid of the triggers. So one of the triggers would be things like if they had been exposed to mold. So they lived in somewhere where there was mold, the mycotoxins in their body. The body can't clear the mycotoxins. They would just keep triggering those mast cells, just keep triggering them. And then when these poor people then get an infection like COVID, the mast cells that are already rather irritated just go crazy,
Right.
and then they feel very unwell, and then they don't. When they get over the infection, it doesn't reset, which is what long COVID is. So it doesn't reset back to how they were before, which wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as they are now.
Mm.
So then that's long COVID is like ME, it's post-viral fatigue, it's an ME kind of thing. Well, it's all the same.
Mm.
So yeah, so I when I discovered how to treat COVID, I contacted the various people in government, and the head of the Royal College of GPs, and our Minister for Health, Chris Whitty. Sorry, our Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, and our Minister for Health, Matt Hancock. And I thought, my God, my phone is going to be red hot as these people get back to me and say, oh, fantastic, you've discovered how to treat COVID. That's amazing.
Hmm.
The country can get back onto its, get back to work.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a single reply.
Yeah. What a surprise.
Not a single reply. So that
Yeah.
was a red flag. It was like, why are they not contacting me? That's weird. And I thought, well, maybe they're inundated with what they could consider to be sort of, weird people saying, oh, you do this and you do that. And but I'm a doctor, and surely it's worth one of their minions just ringing me up and saying, well, what do you think? Tell us about it. But no, nothing. So that was a bit of a red flag. And then, yeah, and then I started hearing about patients with long COVID. And the media was saying, we don't know what is causing this, and we don't know why these people have got it, and there's no treatment for it, and there's loads of people, 20% of the people who've had COVID have got long COVID, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh, I think they've just got MCAS, haven't they? Because I sort of started joining the dots in the spring, and this was the August. So I opened possibly the first long COVID clinic in the UK on the
Mhm.
1st of November 2020. And I did it for two reasons. One, I felt morally obliged to do it because all of the news was there's no treatment. We don't know what to do with these people. And I was like, I know what to do. You know, give my hand up.
Sure.
I think I could help them. So I felt absolutely that I should do it. And also, I was really curious. I want to know, was I right? Who doesn't
Mm.
want to know if you're right? So I thought I need to see, is this a phenomenon where the infection has created the mast cell activation and irritated their mast cells so much that previously healthy people who did not have MCAS have had activated mast cells, or have most of them got a previous history of undiagnosed, untreated mast cell activation.
Mm.
And I would say 99% of them were in that group. So when I
The undiagnosed group, you mean?
undiagnosed. So when
Yeah.
I when I took a history from them, I'd say, as a baby, did you have eczema or asthma? Did you have any allergies? Did you have lots of ear infections? Did you have, blah. Um, and they go, yeah, I had eczema as a baby, and then I had a bit of asthma, and then I had hay fever, and then I got really ill at university
Mm.
because they would have been eating junk food, probably, right, which is high in histamine,
Sure.
and I got
Down that
terrible
road, same thing.
IBS, and
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, God knows what. Yeah, you don't want to
Sure.
go there really. So then my IBS started, and I go, okay, okay. So yeah, and then treating the long COVID is you treat it if you settle their mast cell, and as I said before, you've got to get rid of the triggers. So if they've been exposed to mycotoxins, you have to clear those. If they are eating high histamine foods, they have to stop that.
Hmm.
Go on a low histamine diet. There's an excellent website called whatthebleepcaniEat.com. And from that, you can get a list of about 200 foods that are histamine free or low histamine, and you stick with those. Everything has to be freshly prepared, no leftovers, no processed food, organic if you can, please.
Mm.
So important. Lots of water, filtered water, get out in the sunlight, do some grounding, all of this stuff to get as healthy as you can. And
That
so
sounds
yeah,
like a
so
protocol for everyone, though, Tina. Like
well,
you,
it
you
is
know,
that bit is
yeah.
that absolutely is. But the biggest trigger then for the long COVID and for the vaccine is the spike protein.
Mm.
Okay, so the spike
Yeah.
protein that's made by the messenger RNA that was injected into everybody or virtually everybody went into our previously healthy cells, hijacked the ribosomes of the cells, which is the protein making mechanism of the cell.
Hmm.
And instead of making the proteins that we need to be healthy, the
Yeah.
peptides in our body that just do so many functions for us to keep everything going,
Hmm.
those ribosomes would start making spike protein, which is super toxic,
Sure. Was
right?
this
So now
linked to
that,
the cytokine storms and that sort of
yeah.
talk that?
Well,
Sorry, go on.
yeah. Sorry, no, no, absolutely all of that. So the spike protein, yeah, the Pfizer was 12 billion pieces of messenger RNA apparently
Wow.
in each dose, and AstraZeneca was 50.
Shit.
Um,
Okay.
Moderna's 100 billion
Yeah. Holy
in
crap.
each dose, right? So we were told it would stay in the arm, it would disintegrate within a few days, it'd be gone. Well, absolute BS, absolute BS.
Yeah.
It went all over the body, and it went into previously healthy cells, in the myocardium, in the heart, in the lungs, in the brain, you name it. Could get into it, and the
Mm.
reason it could get in was because we have ACE2 receptors, which are little receptors on our cells, and they're throughout our body in every organ. They're long, lining our arteries, lining our capillaries, they're everywhere. And they are on the mast cells. And
Right.
these ACE2 receptors give the spike protein a sort of something to hold on to, and to stimulate and to pass into the cells through. So then we're in big trouble because now we have, and this also didn't make sense to me. It was
Mm.
like, why, they were talking about the spike protein is the worst bit of the virus. And then, oh, we're going to make the body make the spike protein. It was like, that doesn't seem to be right. you know, I don't think you'd have to be stupid to think that was a good idea. Anyway, so they were sort of, lots of horrible, confusing messages. And so now one of the things we have to do for people is get rid of the spike protein. And the spike protein cannot be, in the vast majority of people, broken down by the body because it's a non-human protein. We've never made it before. Why would our body have any mechanism for getting rid of it? Why
Hmm.
would we? So we haven't, right? So it has to be broken up into pieces for the body to be able to cope with each section and get rid of it. And so when I was forced to have two vaccines,
Mm.
like many medical people, right? So I didn't want it. I was frightened of it. I wasn't frightened of COVID. I knew how to treat COVID by
Yeah.
2021, right? I just treated 100 people and everyone was fine. I wasn't
Yeah.
frightened of that. But I did want to see my patients. I wanted to be able to still practice. And they said I would lose my practicing privileges at the two private hospitals and the clinic in London where I worked. And if I didn't have two, and my gut instinct was don't touch it with a barge pole. And my heart was saying, but I need to see my patients, right? So
Mm.
I made a really bad decision and I didn't listen to my gut instinct. And I would
Mm.
encourage everybody to listen to their gut instinct because it's all those little microbes in your gut are telling you something.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I went and I had two. And but they'd also worked on my children. The media, the government, the propaganda had worked on our families. Please have it. We want you to stay safe because we love you. Please, please have it. Please have it. Please have it.
Of course.
And of course, a confused mind is an easier to manipulate mind. So if you
Absolutely.
confuse people, you can brainwash them more easily. You can mind control them more easily. Okay.
Yes.
So I've got my children begging me. My common sense is saying don't touch it.
Yeah.
My gut is saying don't touch it. My organizations I work through are saying you have to have it. Pooh. So I went and had two. And I really do believe the first one was normal saline because I had no reaction whatsoever. And we do think that some of the batches were just water.
Hmm.
And that makes sense because if you gave something that was so toxic to everybody, a lot of people would start. I mean, there were people dropping down dead in the centres where they were getting the vaccine.
Yeah.
And certainly people dying within a few days and within 24 hours and a week later and stuff. And if you did the same to the whole population, the numbers going through the doors would have been so great, it would have been very obvious to people, more obvious to people.
Sure.
So I think some of them were just normal saline. And then people would say, it's fine, please, to the sort of vaccine hesitant family members. It's fine, go and have it. It didn't affect me at all.
Hmm.
And then, of course, you would be the one who persuaded your loved one to go and have it. And maybe it would be disaster for them.
Yeah.
It's
It's
tragic.
Russian roulette.
What they did was tragic. Yeah. The
Yeah.
second one, however, vaccine injured me.
Really?
Yeah. The second one,
What
within
happened?
an hour. Now, I took antihistamines. I took all the stuff that I
Mm.
said you treat COVID with because I thought, I'm going to make this spike protein. Let me take lots of stuff. So I took that for a week before, and more on even on the day of going to have it done. Within an hour, I had a tremor in my right hand,
Shit.
like this. It was like that
Hmm.
within an hour, and I thought, oh my God, what's going on? And then I could feel something on the back of my head, and I was getting eczema, and I've never had eczema, and it was coming up on the nape of my neck. And I
Wow.
thought, good grief. And then my tongue started to swell up, and it was really tender, so that my teeth felt like razor blades on the side of my swollen tongue, and it was really painful, hard to
Yeah.
talk. And I lost some weight because I just didn't want to eat. It was so difficult. And it
Yeah.
was just awful. And then I had narcolepsy. I was falling asleep mid-sentence. I was reading to my grandchildren and I fell asleep and reading the book. And my grandson's going, Nana, Nana, wake up. I was like,
Wow.
what? It was very scary.
Yeah.
I also
Did
had
you hit
peripheral
the panic
epilepsy.
stations at this point or not?
Well, no, no. I had peripheral epilepsy in my left leg.
Okay.
So if I sat in a certain position with my on the carpet playing with the children with my
Yeah.
legs straight, my left leg would suddenly just go into spasms, uncontrollable spasm contractions, which was very scary. That was the most scary of all of the
Hmm.
symptoms because I thought if I'm walking and that happens, I'll collapse. If I'm
Sure.
driving when that happens, that's not good. It only happened 3 times, thank goodness, over two
Wow.
years.
And what was the
And it was
timeline from the time that you had the shot to the like for example from the tremors to the leg, like was that a week? Was that days? Was that
it
months?
was it was it was about 2 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, it was the eczema and the tremor was immediate. The burning tongue started to happen straight away. It was about 2 weeks before my leg went into spasms, and
Mhm.
it's because it was the first time I sat in that position, I think. Luckily, it was positional, and I couldn't it didn't come on in any other position, thank goodness.
Right.
And so I spent 2 years. I knew there was no point in talking to any doctors, sadly.
I just tell you you're crazy anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's all
I
in your
knew I'd
head.
be gaslit,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
I just was doing what I felt I needed to do for myself. I realized what had happened was I had MCAS, which is why my daughter's got MCAS, because my
Mhm.
husband and I both have it a bit. And but my MCAS historically was fine. I had a bit of asthma when I was a child. I was allergic to loads of animals when I was little, and occasionally I would eat something, and in the morning I'd wake up with a bit of a swollen face, and I think, oh well, maybe I slept funnily or whatever. And I stupidly didn't think, oh, I've got MCAS, haven't I? It's because I had spaghetti bolognese last night or something. I just didn't put, it sounds ridiculous, but I didn't put two and two together. Um, and um, and so of course, what it did was it really, really brought it to the fore. So suddenly I couldn't eat high histamine foods and I got rosacea on my face from this. So if I had tomatoes, poof, I'd be bright red and
Wow.
the rosacea would come up.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, I knew that's MCAS, right? So thought there's no point in seeing anybody about this. I'll just sort it myself. So anyway, so then I was doing my best. So for 2 years, I was seeing all these patients with, of course, my long COVID patients then started to be joined by vaccine injured patients. And some of my long COVID patients who had got better would come back to the clinic and say, oh, it's much worse again. I say, what happened? Did you have the vaccine? Yes.
Right.
Okay,
So
because it was, yeah.
I just
Anyway,
wanted to
so
ask you, so can you clear up something for me? When you started your long COVID clinic, was in still in 2020 and 20
yeah,
prior to the vaccine rollout?
yeah,
Right.
1st of November 2020, and I was seeing long COVID patients. So people who
Right.
say there's no such
Long
thing as long
COVID
COVID,
is
it's all vaccine
vaccine
injury,
injured.
that's
That's
not
right.
true. Okay. So I was seeing loads and loads of people with long COVID,
Yeah.
ME, who were
What's
pre-vaccine.
ME again? Sorry.
Oh, that's a sort of post-viral fatigue
Right.
kind of syndrome, where people feel it's yeah, they're tired and they can't function properly, and they're just getting up and having a shower exhausts them for the rest of the day, and
Got it.
so they can't look after their kids and all the rest of it.
So they were having
So
these symptoms prior to the jab,
absolutely.
then
So
getting
the
better from your
infection,
protocol, and then getting the
yes,
jab, and then going back to where they were before.
yes, or
Right.
worse, yeah, yeah. And then also people were starting to find me who had not had long COVID, but just who had had the vaccine and then were seriously unwell.
Hmm.
And some of them were devastating, things I have never seen before,
Really.
absolutely devastating. So I'll tell you a couple.
Mm.
One girl, late 30s, she, after 18 months of trying to get help with the NHS and not getting any help at all, found her way to my clinic, and she found that immediately after the injections, and they shouldn't be called vaccines because they're not, right? So we'll now call them injections. Immediately after the injections, she was very, very sick, vomiting, diarrhea. Her body just was like, what is going on? Feeling terrible, looking terrible, not able to keep anything down, absolutely in a terrible state. Then, if she sat up, she would get like a stroke and her face would collapse on one side. She couldn't talk and she'd
Wow.
have to lie down again. And then somehow her circulation would be restored and she'd be able to speak again and
Mhm.
have symmetry of her face restored. But every time she sat up, after 20 minutes, the same thing would happen. She'd have to lie down. And then also, if she ate, every time she ate a meal, she would be unconscious, unrousable for 5 hours.
My
I mean,
goodness.
I've never seen anything like this. This is more than just MCAS. I don't know what, this is crazy. So she's now moribund and unconscious and unrousable for 5 hours after she eats a meal. I mean, how does that woman live? How does she keep a job and keep earning money and
Mm.
look after herself, her family, right? So, and she'd been like this for 18 months
Wow.
with no help. So, so I'm like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to try a few things, okay?
Mm.
Because so by then there are other clinics and they're open. Other colleagues are trying various things like ivermectin, and etc. So we go. I throw my MCAS protocol at her, and plus a few other things like ivermectin, which is anti-spike, because it's obviously the spike that's causing it in her.
Mm.
And I'm asking her to do increased autophagy with intermittent fasting, which she's very happy to do because she doesn't want to be unconscious after
Of
each
course.
meal.
Yeah.
So bless her
One meal
heart,
a
she was
day would
only
be
eating
plenty.
one meal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So within a few days, she's able to sit up for longer and longer and longer. So the paralysis is coming on after an hour, then it's coming on after 2 hours. Then she's able to, then she's a week later, she emails me and she says, you won't believe this. I can sit up for 2 hours and it doesn't happen at all. I have to lie down because I'm exhausted because my muscles are weak now, having spent 18 months of lying down.
Mm.
But I'm only lying down because of my muscles, not because of my facial paralysis.
Mhm.
So that's like, wow, that's amazing. And she sent me videos of her with this facial paralysis and slurring her speech and everything. I mean, it's, totally dramatic.
It's amazing.
And then she was finding that she was still unconscious after food, but maybe just for an hour, and then it came down to about half an hour.
Mhm.
And so she was eating in the evening, so she could actually go back to work. It was amazing. And then I didn't hear anything from her for quite some time. Maybe it was a year or slightly longer. Anyway, she then ran out of ivermectin and she thought, oh, I don't need it. I'm all right. Um, and of course, as soon as she stopped taking the ivermectin, it all came back again.
Yeah.
So
That's
she
tough.
contacted me and said, please, can I have some more? So we did another prescription for her. And then she was back again, hunky dory. So this is extraordinary. I've had I've had three patients who became totally suicidal after the vaccine, after the injections.
Hmm.
And that was very, very alarming, very, very alarming. Really quite difficult to help them, but we did get there in the end. But they
I mean,
went
was that
into
because of
the,
injuries or was that because of just what was going on in their lives or because
no,
of
no, it was because of the spike protein. It was changing the biochemistry in their brain.
their brains? Yeah.
Mm. And we
It's interesting
we
you say
also,
that, because I
mm,
I just had a podcast last week with Nicholas Holscher, and he was just saying that a lot of the studies that are coming out now are basically saying exactly what you just said, that these chemical reactions in their brain are just this suicidal, ideation
mhm,
and
yeah,
yeah, just
yeah,
all these sort of violent thoughts,
yeah,
all these things
yeah,
are creeping up.
yeah,
They're on the rise dramatically, and it's I mean, as you know, like, these injections cross the blood-brain barrier. I
Yeah.
mean, they don't stay in the system. Nicholas was saying that they don't stay in the shoulder, like you were saying
No,
earlier. He was
no.
saying after 3 years, there was like they were finding that it was just all through their system. It wasn't
Yeah.
in one place,
No.
and it wasn't going
No.
anywhere either.
No, no. We'll come to that so people can rest assured there isn't a remedy.
Hmm.
But
Crazy.
the other thing that we have has been discovered is that the spike protein destroys the pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland, I'm sure you know about that.
Mm.
That's the third eye,
Yep.
and that's where our spiritual center is. That's where we make melatonin, which is for our circadian rhythm, and also melatonin is very anti-cancer.
Hmm.
And a lot of people after the injections have had real sleep disturbances. They can't sleep. Then you can't repair your brain. You can't rest, you know. Um, and it's also where you make serotonin, which keeps you happy.
Hmm.
So if the production of serotonin goes down, then you are going to have, depression and potentially suicidal ideation, etc. And then it also, the pineal gland is where we critically think.
Yeah.
So very important to preserve it. And as I say, our spiritual center, and maybe that's where our personality soul sits, you know. So it's, yeah. And what destroys the pineal gland? Glyphosate and
Yep.
all the spray, electromagnetic frequencies and EMFs, fluoride. So please don't use fluoride toothpaste or drink water with fluoride in it. Spike protein from the infection and the injection, and blue light
In the screens.
from our screens. Okay, so all
Mhm.
of these things are, and aluminium and other heavy metals, they all destroy the pineal gland. So I would recommend everybody takes triple boron every day and lithium orotate. And also there are some LifeWave patches, which are called Alavida, and they also
Mm.
help the pineal gland. So I would definitely be doing that and steering clear of all of those toxins as
Mm.
much as possible.
What's triple
Um,
boron? What's that?
Triple boron, it's a triple boron is a mineral. It's a
Mhm.
mineral and really essential for the pineal gland and its function. Um, so yeah, that's what I would do there. Now, people before that, everyone's really depressed about all this spike protein that's swimming around in them
Mm.
with no way of getting it out. There's been an incredible team of Italian scientists who have they worked tirelessly from the moment the pandemic was released to work out what was going on in the body, what was the enemy. Know your enemy. It's the most important thing, isn't it? Right? In
Mhm.
any battle, you try and work out exactly who is your enemy, what are they doing, what's happening. And they've wrote a 2,000-page document on COVID and the spike protein and the effects in the body and how to treat it and everything. Incredible.
Mhm.
And then they were set to help the body clear the spike protein. So they took about 200 different naturally occurring substances and they mixed them with the spike protein and looked under an electron microscope and to see if any of them broke it up. And they found that NAC did a little bit. So if you can imagine, the spike protein is a very complex, twisted protein structure. And the ordinary NAC, when it was mixed with the spike protein, it just made it uncurl a little bit, maybe 2%, maybe 12%, maybe 15%, just uncurled. So it showed promise. But then the spike protein would curl back up again. So that wasn't any good. But it was the only thing they found that really did something. They were working with a quantum physicist, and he said, okay, so we now need to go for coherence. So some of those molecules in that NAC were looking in the right direction and could have an effect on that spike. But the others were off duty and they weren't working. But if we get them all lined up with coherence, let's see how powerful it can be. So they did that, and then they mixed their augmented NAC with the spike protein, and it denatured 99.8%.
Oh,
Broke it
wow.
up. 99.8% of that protein was broken up,
Yeah.
and
So what's
then
the
the
difference
liver
between
could clear it out.
augmented
Okay,
NAC
an
and NAT?
ordinary.
Yeah.
Okay, so all the molecules are identical,
Hmm.
but it's a bit like I describe it as a parade ground. If you imagine a parade ground and all the soldiers are just milling around, they're talking, standing in little groups to their friends, and they're just, some are on their phone and they're just sort of, off duty, milling around. It doesn't look like a very impressive group. And
Hmm.
then when somebody goes, attention, and they all turn around, all in lines, absolutely powerful. Yes,
Right.
that's the difference. They were all the same before, but now they're ordered, they're orderly, and
Right.
they have cohesion. And when you do that in a molecular structure, you can make that molecule have um, more powerful effects. So every molecule is working to your goal,
Hmm.
not just some of them. And so that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
So it's all about quantum physics, quantum medicine. And quantum medicine is where we're going. It's
Mm.
very, very
It's
exciting.
exciting. Yeah.
Very exciting. My husband keeps saying to me, "When are you going to retire?" Or my father actually says it to me more than my
Mhm.
husband, because my husband knows better. But my father says, "When are you going to retire?" And I say, "You must be joking. I'm having so much fun. And this
Yeah.
is so exciting. We're on the brink of so many really interesting new developants are
Yeah.
happening. It's just a
And you've got
fantastic
about
time to be around."
65% of the population that needs your help. So, you
It,
know,
well, yeah, there's too many people to
it
help.
is a lot.
So I've got other doctors working with me to help me because I just turning too many people away and it was too heartbreaking.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the augmented NAC, I will give you a link and a code that gives people a discount and show them where they can order
Yeah,
it
and
from.
awesome.
Yeah, because we want to make sure they can get it, and it is available in Australia and in most parts of the world. And they take one 3 times a day for 3 months, and then they take one a day forever. And I
Yep.
say forever because some people we have seen in studies will keep producing the spike protein. It's actually changed their DNA.
Hmm.
And so they obviously need to keep on top of that. Other people will who have had COVID or the injections and have cleared their spike protein, that's extracellular. It can't clear the intracellular, but the extracellular, they are maybe shed upon. So shedding is a real phenomenon
Yeah, I was
where
just about to ask you that.
people who
Mm.
go and have the boosters and things, when they come home, their saliva, their spit, their body secretions are full of spike protein. So when they talk to their loved ones, they're going to be giving some to them,
Yeah.
which it just makes the most extraordinary. Sorry, my phone is ringing.
Hmm.
It's just sorry about that.
Right.
Do you remember they said children should be vaccinated to protect the grandparents?
Mm.
Do you remember that? Well, first of all, that was another red flag. It was like you do not vaccinate somebody else to protect a different person.
Yeah.
Everyone has a vaccine in theory, to protect themselves. And if they're protected, they shouldn't care if they're in a room full of people who are unvaccinated because their vaccine's working, right? It was safe and effective,
Right.
apparently,
Of course.
right? So if their vaccine's working, then it doesn't matter if they're in a car with other people who aren't vaccinated or in a train with lots of people who aren't vaccinated.
Mm.
If that's proper science, okay? So they were conning us into believing and confusing people into thinking, oh no, we all have to be vaccinated for everyone to be safe. And where's that come from? So the terrible thing is, a lot of children were then used as a human shield and were given
Absolutely.
this really toxic substance, which I will say in a minute what it does in the body. Giving that to children to protect a grandparent was absolutely criminal. And then now it's the opposite is happening. The grandparents who go and have the boosters, when they go and kiss their grandchildren, are giving them spike protein.
Mm.
So now they're being used as a conduit for this weapon.
Yeah.
So actually,
Very.
if they're going and having boosters, the grandchildren shouldn't go anywhere near them.
Mm.
That's the that's the real reality of it.
Yeah. But for how
I
long?
mean,
It's just like
well, yeah,
who knows?
we know they produce it for at least 18 weeks at
Mm.
least, and they stop looking after that. So, I mean, this is people need to really start thinking very carefully about all of
Yeah.
this.
When I interviewed Pierre Corey and I was new to the shedding things. I'd heard and read a couple of little things, but it
Yeah,
sounds almost, I don't know, sci-fi. Like a
yeah,
lot of these
yeah,
just sounds
yeah,
beyond
yeah,
comprehension. Like, how could that
yeah,
possibly be a thing?
yeah.
Um, but it's a thing, and you can just
It
see it. I
is.
mean, I've spoken to women that have been in office buildings with other women that have been vaccinated, and they had the jab, and these women didn't, and their menstrual cycles were changing.
Yeah, yeah,
Some a woman that I spoke to early on in the piece was like in her mid 50s and hadn't had a menstruation in years,
yeah,
and all of a sudden
yeah,
started
yeah,
bleeding.
yeah, yeah. We
And
see.
so
Yes.
it's
Uh,
just wild, like
It's
how things
yeah,
work.
exactly, exactly. And I mean, and some of the things that that spike protein does, and this is not hearsay, this is not uh, made up. This is proven scientifically because there are now over 3,500 studies and papers in that have been published in peer-reviewed journals
Hmm.
globally about the toxicity of the spike protein and the
Yeah.
effects on the body. So this is absolutely truth. It causes microclots to form. So every patient I've had who we've looked at their and we've looked at their blood on live blood analysis has got microclots. And then, of course, we've seen a very big increase. It's not just microclots. This will create big clots in some people. So we've had people with pulmonary emboli and heart attacks and strokes, and that those have all massively increased in number. And I would imagine that most people on who are listening to this will know somebody who has had a heart attack or a stroke or a pulmonary embolism. And I
Hmm.
know people who've had, who fit into all of those categories.
Hmm.
And it also causes myocarditis, especially in young men. There was a study in the Philippines. They did it on 14 to 16-year-olds who were very healthy young boys, and they gave them cardiac workouts first. They checked everything, their ECG, their echo, their blood, levels of various chemicals like troponin and things. And it was all normal. They gave them two of the injections. They checked their hearts again. 54% of them had myocarditis. And then, so we know it causes that. And then we know it causes infertility. There's been a 32% increase in infertility in the highly vaccinated countries. We know that it causes immunosuppression. So it actually makes the T lymphocytes merge together and make like blancmange rather than being separate. So they can't work. They form syncytia, and they're useless. And so people are getting shingles. Now, when I was a GP, we used to see one case of shingles each GP per year in an elderly immunosuppressed patient. And a lot of my colleagues who are still GPs are telling me that they're seeing at the beginning, initially in 2021, they suddenly started seeing 2 or 3 cases a day in young people.
Wow.
Right? So this is a big shift, right? So these people are
Massive.
immunosuppressed, and then more people are getting pneumonia, more sepsis. I keep hearing about people. We had a family member who was admitted to hospital a couple of weekends ago with sepsis.
Yeah.
Fit, healthy
Very common.
person.
Hmm.
I mean, you never used to hear of sepsis. It was like very rare. And then, of course, we've got all the cancers. So it increases 17 cancer causing genes. It sort of activates them, and it inactivates 3 cancer protective genes. Now we're making cancers the whole time, and our body's just correcting it. It just sorts it out. And unfortunately, it switches off the P53, the BRCA1, and the PRB gene, which are those sort of cancer guardian genes.
Hmm.
And so people are getting cancer. We're seeing more breast cancer, more bone cancer, more brain tumors, more gut, bowel cancer, leukemias, and then there was contamination identified in all of the vials. Something called SV40, which
Yeah.
probably Pierre Corey talked about,
Yes.
um, and So that increases the risk of leukemia and other cancers
Mm.
massively.
And
So
multiple cancers. I'm seeing a lot of people that have got
oh
two
yes,
or
more
three
than
variations
one
of
primary.
cancers. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
And in the 42, 43 years I've been qualified, people used to present with a primary, and it was only if they had really, really delayed coming to ask for help that they
Mhm.
might have some secondaries. And now people are presenting with a pain,
Yeah,
and when they present, they've not only got the primary, they've got secondaries everywhere.
yeah.
And they think the clots might be increasing the passage of cells to make more metastases. But you
Mm.
know, this is this is tragic, and therefore we need to clear the spike protein from everybody,
Yeah.
not just people who've got long COVID or everybody, the children, the adults, everyone.
Yeah. Well, it
Mm.
sounds like, I mean, the whole world has been poisoned. Whether you
Mm.
went and got the injections or not, I mean, how
Yeah,
can you prevent yourself from hanging around certain people, certain situations? Like you can't prevent it. So the best thing you can do
no,
is to put yourself in the best, I guess, physical condition that it can
yep,
be, your body can fight off and ward off any of these
yep,
particular like spike proteins and infection just in general. Because again, just on a very, very mild level, the things that you're probably hearing the same as what I am, it seems to be resonating with everyone that's awake to everything that's going on, is people are just sicker for longer. They're just more sickly. They
yeah,
they just
yeah,
they get a I don't know. They get a cut, for example. I know a guy who's a podiatrist, and he was saying that he'd had these young boys coming with, cuts on their toes, and he'd have to like ingrown nails, and he'd normally cut it away, and it'd take, I don't know, 2 weeks. For example,
yeah,
with a bit of
yeah,
medication and some
yeah,
treatment, and 2 weeks, and it'd be
yeah.
fine. He said 3, 4 months later, they're not healing. They're just still
No,
staying
no,
sick. So,
yeah,
yeah, I mean it's one of these things that's really like coming at people from multiple
mm,
angles. So I guess,
yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure if you finished talking about your protocol and about some of the things that you're prescribing, but I think we should definitely hit that home because I
Mm,
mean, even
yeah.
just talking to you, I'm just thinking like I do intermittent fasting, I do extended fasting from time to time. I like to think that 80% of the time I'm very healthy, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
I have my vices, but at the same time, I mean, I'm approaching my 50s, I've got young kids, and there's just
Mm.
like all the more importance to keep my health in tip-top
Mm.
shape.
Yeah, I think what everyone needs to do is the augmented NAC. So what I generally say to people in my protocol is take ordinary NAC for a week in the morning,
Mhm.
and in the middle of the afternoon, take a binder of some sort, whether that's a a zeolite
Yeah.
or a something like chlorella. So do
Mhm.
your or activated charcoal. So do that mid-afternoon, so that you're doing a liver cleanse for a week and you're getting yourself set up to be as strong as possible to then start clearing the spike protein. And then start with one augmented NAC every day for a couple of days.
Mhm.
And then, if you're okay with that, then go to one twice a day for a couple of days, and then go to one 3 times a day for 3 months, and then go back to one a day. And this is really important. And I say build up slowly because you can get a detox reaction as all of this spike protein is being
Oh,
pulled off. See, what the augmented NAC does is it detaches the spike protein from the ACE2 receptors. Okay, so they are clinging to all of the ACE2 receptors. So, for example, in your arteries, all of the walls are lined by cells that have got ACE2 receptors.
mhm.
So there'll be these spike proteins will be hanging down like bells from the ceiling, right? But all the way around the whole of the artery. And that's why we've seen a lot of inflammation. People have had aneurysms and split aortas and, you crazy, and brain bleeds and strokes and so on from that. But anyway, so it's going to pull off those spike proteins. It's going to then break it up in denaturing it 99.8%, And those bits are then going to be go to your liver and then be passed out in the urine. So it detaches it, it denatures it, and then it detoxes the person, which
Mhm.
is the 3Ds are fantastic. And but you can, from all this spike protein being removed from the ACE2 receptors, get a bit of a detox reaction and feel a bit
Wow.
fluey, or so you must drink plenty of water and just build up slowly. Do the detox for the liver for the first week, and then build up slowly over a week to taking 1-3 times a day.
Mm. Do
And
you have a liver detox protocol? Do you have something that you
well, that's
follow?
that's the that's the
Augmented
ordinary
NAC.
NAC, ordinary in the morning, and the activated charcoal or something like that in the
Righto.
afternoon. Do
Okay.
that for a week. That's the liver detox, and then you'll be ready to do a proper detox from the spike,
Mm.
and then take one a day forever. And I have patients now who I'm seeing who are getting into difficulties again, and they did that maybe last year when I recommended it to them, and then they ran out and they didn't bother to reorder, and and then they come back and then they've got a few of their symptoms are creeping back and everything, and I'm like, okay, let's go back to.
Sure.
And I must end by telling you, if there's time,
Yeah.
a fantastic story. So on the 1st of June, people should look at the website zerospike.org,
Mhm.
because there's lots of testimonials and information on there, and there are blogs with lots of this scientific data is there for people to check out that what I'm saying is correct. But so on the 1st of June, I saw this lady in her early 60s, and she'd had 3 injections, and then she'd caught COVID in October 2023. And then last year, 2024, she started to, I think it was last year, I might be wrong about the dates actually, maybe it was this year in March. No, last year, 2024 in March, she started to have these strange fits, and it came out of the blue, and she would just start contracting all of her muscles uncontrollably. One side of her face again would look like she'd had a stroke.
Mhm.
She's not able to talk during these. And the first time it happened, they called an ambulance. Obviously, they were absolutely, what's going on. She was in casualty for 14 hours fitting
Mm.
like that, exhausting. They sent her home. The next day, started again, called an ambulance, went in 17 hours like this. I
Wow.
mean, how scary was that for them?
Mm.
Offered no treatment, no. Saw a neurologist who said, "Oh, it's very strange. We're seeing lots of people with this. We don't know what's causing it." Like, okay, right, really? Um, and he gave her some propanolol, and she discovered that if she took the propanolol 5 minutes into it starting, if she managed to get it in her, it would reduce the length of time. So it wasn't 17 hours anymore. And she finally reduced it down. By the time she saw me, it was 45 minutes, but it was happening 6 days a week. So her life was completely, she had this wonderful, devoted husband and family around her. And it was, anyway, during the consultation, she says, "Oh, I can feel one coming," because she gets this terrible, terrible, searing pain in her brain
Mm.
throughout the whole thing. And it starts off and she knows one's coming. So he pops her in a comfortable chair. And anyway, so I watched this. It's so alarming. It was just, oh,
I can imagine.
absolutely terrible. Anyway, so then we'd made a plan of what she was going to do. And she actually had already started a carnivore diet. And I said, yes, carry on with that, please, carry on with that. But I want you to take the augmented NAC. And she'd seen me being interviewed by Dr. John Campbell. So she'd already got some in the cupboard, but she wanted to talk to me before she started it. So she started it the next day on the 3rd of June, because I think I saw her on the 2nd. And she emailed me to say that from the 5th of June onwards, she has not had another attack.
Mm.
Isn't that amazing?
That's crazy. Wow.
Right? 2 days of augmented NAC, and she no longer has those attacks. And
Incredible.
I spoke to her about 6 weeks ago now. And she said, "Oh, she said, not only do I feel well, I feel the best I have felt
Mm.
for ever in my life, and that's probably the carnivore diet doing that bit.
Yeah.
And she's and her husband took. He said to her when she was in the midst of all this fitting and stuff, "I'll take you on a dream holiday when you're better." That's when they went.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. It's so good to have such an impact on those people because I would just think when you mentioned before about certain people feeling suicidal, I mean, depression is rampant at the best of times anyway. We kind of unfortunately in a
Mm,
society that's yeah, that seems like it's been on the up and up for quite a while. But when you've at
mm.
that age and you're going through that much trauma
Yeah,
every day, I mean, it'd make you want to end it or at least think about it.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like
yeah.
it
Easy,
would
could
be
easily,
devastating.
could
And her
easily,
poor
could,
husband would be just,
yeah.
helpless, just doing the best that he could with everything that he had. Like, it's just such
Yeah,
a
it's terrible.
horrible situation to think about. So it's incredible that you've been able to piece together these
Mm,
little bits of pieces of information that are making such a great impact. And I think it's not just one big, um, you know, uh, it's one thing, like I'm just looking for that lightning bolt moment that's going to save everything. I really believe that having a toolbox full of
yeah,
different things that you can use at any one
yeah,
time is the best position that we can be in. And I think as a physician, you probably agree that you don't ever look at one thing in isolation, right? You would sort of look at maybe multiple facets or different approaches to many different areas and kind of build upon because everything throughout this whole conversation you're saying start here and build up to here, like it's
yeah,
sort of a
yeah,
I can feel that
yeah,
like that's your value systems is like,
yeah,
hey, listen, if we can
absolutely.
just add different strings to your bow, then like
Yeah,
eventually you're going to be an absolute machine.
absolutely. And I think I just need to point out, for the record, that I am not registered with the GMC anymore.
Hmm. I'm glad
And
to
I
hear.
work, yeah, I work as a naturopathic holistic
Congratulations. I think
doctor. I
that's
know,
that's
thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you. And that's a whole other story, which I'm very happy to tell you another time. But
Yeah.
yeah, yes, it was, it's, I wanted to be able to explore other therapies for people and to be using those without looking over my shoulder.
Mm,
So recommending them to people without looking at. So I can't prescribe anymore, and that's the price I've paid for coming off the register, but that's fine.
yeah.
And we in the clinic we look for holistic approaches that help support the body in healing itself as much as possible.
Mm,
And clearing those triggers, clear the triggers, support the body, but get everything back into balance, get rid of inflammation. One of the biggest, well, we think now that inflammation in the brain is what causes depression and anxiety. And if you can clear the inflammation in the brain,
mm.
and it's no great surprise that people have inflamed brains when you look at what they eat.
Absolutely.
You
And what
know,
they watch and consume,
yeah,
listen to, and like
yeah,
it all
yeah.
piles on. Look,
You know,
I'm so glad to hear that you made that transition to naturopathy because for me personally, my whole health journey from a young age, inspired by my mother and my grandmother because they were always whenever there was something wrong with me and my brother as children, my mum would ring her mum, and her and my grandmother would talk about some fucking remedy that they would use,
remedy.
yeah, like back in the day, and
Mm,
nine times out of ten, it would actually
mm,
have some
mm.
sort of effect, in a positive way, right? So
Yeah,
I guess through all of that, I've seen iridologists and naturopaths and things like that since I was like 10.
yeah,
So,
fantastic.
that's my port of call. Like it's almost
Yeah,
like even from instinctually you'd get I don't know, you'd feel run down. And the first thing that I would do was to make a big pot of vegetables and make a stew and just sit there and just guzzle it all down and have a big belly full of stew and then just go to bed and sleep it off. Like that I feel like we are heading in that direction. I think people COVID
yeah,
as a disgusting sort of representation of the evil that can go on in our lifetime, which I
Yeah.
never thought that I'd have to live through,
Yeah.
coach my kids through, all that kind of stuff. It was just absolute shit fight
Yeah.
trying to have conversations with them about what's happening at school, and if this happens, you do
Mm,
this, like crazy conversations. But I think it's
yeah.
a blessing in a lot of ways because a lot of people are
Yeah.
now realizing the system for what it is. It's
Mm.
a money making machine, and your
Mm.
health is not exactly a priority when it comes to the health industry. And
No.
it does it sounds such a oxymoron,
Mm,
but it's one of those things where
yeah.
I don't think if health was a priority, I don't think we would see the disease and the discomfort and the cancers and just all of the
Oh,
things that are going on. I think
no.
it would be at least halfway solved by now. So
Uh,
yeah, I
uh,
congratulate you once again. I think you've it's a tremendous move, and it's I don't know, you're probably kicking yourself you didn't do it sooner, I suppose.
yes, in a way, yeah.
Sort of.
The things work out the way they work out, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, they
There's,
happen when they're meant to be.
things have a timing, but yeah, and there's all sorts of wonderful new technologies, phototherapy technologies, and etc. coming, and quantum medicine machines, and so it's all very exciting time.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Did I
but
hear
people
Efrat say that you were going to come to Australia soon? Is that
Yeah, I'm
something?
hoping to. I'm
Yeah.
hoping to come. Well, it's going to be beyond Christmas in the new year sometime,
Mm. Nice.
and we're hoping to do a little sort of lecture tour, really, to spread some of this news to the medical professionals who need support,
Lovely.
and for them to know what to do and how to help their patients.
Yeah. How much of that can you share? Is there any sort of
Um, it's very
information?
much on the drawing board. It's going to happen. It's going to
Okay.
happen, but we don't have any, set timetable or where I'm going to be or anything, but probably a few cities, hopefully Sydney, Melbourne,
Yeah, sure.
maybe Brisbane, or I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Um,
If you come to
so
Sydney, I'll come and see you. I'm about an hour away, hour and a half
are
away from
you?
Sydney. So
Lovely,
yeah,
lovely. Well,
it'll be
I have a
good.
lot of family who live in Melbourne.
Do you really? That's
Yeah, I
amazing.
do. Yeah. We were there last November.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
visiting
you'll come at a
family.
good time. You'll get some good weather.
Yeah.
Get a lot of vitamin D on your skin. So
Yeah, that would be good.
yeah.
That would be good.
Well, look, I think
That would be good.
we can definitely come back another time if you're open to it and talk about quantum healing and all those sorts of things. I think that'd be a
Yeah,
fantastic conversation. But for now, I'm sure you're going to send me the links to everything so people can
I will.
investigate some of the things
Yeah,
that you talked about, get a hold of the augmented NAC and all of the
yeah,
other little protocols that you mentioned. So that'd be fantastic if you can do that for me, Tina, and then we can help spread the word and get people back on the health track again.
fantastic. Thank you for everything you're doing, Adrian, because people like you are getting the word out there, and that's so important.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. Yeah, this is
Mm,
a treat for me to do, and I love speaking to people like yourself. It gives me hope. It gives me encouragement. I mean,
mm.
there's so many facets of health and ways of living which I'm trying to embody myself, and do things
Yeah,
in my own life and in a way of like becoming a shining example, especially to my
yeah,
children, that
yeah.
what this is what's possible in a life because we create our own reality. You would have to agree, right? So
Absolutely.
it's one of those things
Absolutely.
that we need to be more on the side of creativity and
Hmm.
looking to solutions rather than focusing on problems. So yeah,
Absolutely.
this is my jam. So I love it. But
Yeah,
anyway, I'll let you go.
fantastic.
You've been an amazing
Fantastic.
guest. So thank you very much for that.
It's a
And
pleasure.
I hope to see you in Sydney and circle back another time and have another conversation. Okay.
Lovely. Lovely. I look forward to it. Take care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye now.